Recovery Switch, where victory lives, with Nicole Elizabeth Squires, only on LA Talk Radio.
Well, thank you for tuning in tonight to the Recovery Switch. Tonight, we are going to do something incredible. We are talking about human traffickers and for human trafficking. We're going to educate you on how to get involved the correct way and how to change lives. We are here to make a difference. I know you want to make a difference. Tonight we have the FIAT Foundation. We have Caitlin. She is representing them. She's amazing and wonderful. Of course, we have our co-host, Chuck Mason, and I want to welcome you into our little area right here so we can talk about the reality of what's going on.
Hey, hello everybody. We thank you for tuning in with us this evening, and it's just been great. You guys following us every Sunday. We really appreciate all the listeners. The numbers are growing, and it's just been fantastic. We really appreciate it.
Yes, we do. Thank you so much. Now, the FIAT Foundation or organization. Caitlin, thank you for coming.
I just want to
thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, because you are going to educate us tonight, and how this started was one of my Facebook friends. I put out a request some time ago about anybody who knew they had a good foundation or somebody who is doing something good, or if you want a topic. And this friend named Kelvin, you know who you are, said, Nicole, I would love for that topic to be covered. So I was on a quest to find this. And of course, our mutual friend, Sky.
Love you, Sky.
Love you, Sky.
Hello, Sky. Thank you, Sky.
Brought you into our lives. And I will say we're not the same. So thank you for coming, and tell us a little bit of what the FIAT Foundation is about.
Well, absolutely.
Please.
Once again, I'm just so excited to be here with all of you guys and invite you into this conversation. And just thank you so much for using your platform, because that is all what FIAT is about, really. FIAT stands for, it's more than just a car. FIAT is the Faith Initiative Against Trafficking. But like the car, we are trying to mobilize people, specifically the church. Basically, I don't know about you, but if you've heard anything about trafficking or just the backstories of that, you leave oftentimes with just a heaviness in your heart. You're impacted, but you're not necessarily empowered. How can I join that fight? What can I do as a housewife? What can I do as a ministry leader? What can I do as maybe even in the music industry? And there's this disconnect. And what FIAT aims to do is to create a network, a community, a collaborative of different churches. We even have law enforcement, the different NGOs come and create a space where that whole community will then educate but also empower with practical tools. So you leave, instead of saying, oh, what should I do? You're leaving with a game plan, a next step, an action step that you can actually do.
Oh, I love that.
Yes, I love it.
Oh my gosh, yes. Because so many times, I even when I was talking to you, initially, you said that sometimes churches can come bring a bunch of turkeys or some things that they're trying to help, but that's not going to help the young ladies, are they?
Right. Well, the turkey was just for Thanksgiving in general.
I know, I get it.
But the idea is, sometimes churches have and I'm raised in church, absolutely love church, but have seen this where we want to help, but there's not a conversation going on between those who are on the front line sometimes. And so we just think up of, how can I help? And instead of actually going to those people and asking, how can I help you? And so that's what FIAT facilitates. So instead of assuming, they need clothes or they need these types of items, you can actually go to the Dream Center, or actually go to Gems Uncovered, or actually go to some of the different organizations that are involved in the fight, and you can hear firsthand what they need most. They know what's coming down the pipeline. They know, we're doing care kits to an outreach to girls who are in trafficking, and next week we need X number of items. Can you help us with that? And so we facilitate that, and not just supplies though, but but educating and also getting people, whether it's advocating for foster care in the court, there's so many different elements and ways to get involved aside from just the drives. And that's the other thing that FIAT does, is kind of opening your eyes to the scope of the ways you can get involved and to the root causes that are behind trafficking. That's what it's all about.
I like that. And I like that you mentioned about a lot of these situations come out of foster care or kids that are, I feel, abandoned in some type of way. So they're looking for some sort of source.
Yeah.
Something to fill that need, as far as it could be from, trying to be in the entertainment business, or need a friend, or need love. So tell me a little bit about how does that, happen from the foster care, or what draws these kids in? Because you have a really good outline of who to look for and how does it draw them in.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, within that, I think there's two questions kind of sandwiched in that, and the first is foster care, and foster care actually is one of the most at-risk groups of kids.
Oh, wow.
Foster, the Attorney General actually says that 60% come from foster care, and then 20% can come from runaways. So when you combine those two, that's approximately 80%. And there was a study done in New York City that said 85% of traffic victims had some touch with child welfare services. So between 80 to 85%. And that's not to say, okay, those are going to be the only children who are trafficked. But when we really look at root causes, you have to go to the most vulnerable. And, how can churches come alongside of foster care kids, whether it's mentoring, whether it's actually becoming a foster care family? That's amazing possibility. The reality of it is there's 5 faith communities for every one child within the foster care system, and yet only 25% actually end up getting homes.
Explain to me that. What is five faith? Because I know you saw when you sent me the information, and let me tell you, she sent me some information, and I had some reading to do. But anyway, I'm grateful because you educated me to an extent that I wasn't aware. And what stuck in me that really, really bugged me is that you said that the church is a sleeping giant.
Yeah,
and that really bugs me.
Yeah,
it's like
it's crazy.
What does that mean? And then tell me about what you were trying to explain.
Yeah, absolutely. Sleeping giant has kind of become a mantra for me. I went to a human trafficking conference at the beginning of the year, and what really stuck out to me, I mean, law enforcement, FBI, Homeland Security, faith communities, NGOs were all at this conference, and yet a phrase that just kept coming up was, and if we could only wake up the sleeping giant, which was the church, which was the faith communities, we could crush this. And you were hearing this from all the various key people within this fight, and that just resonated with me of we are this force, and God has already placed us together, and there are so many more of us than there are of the problem, and yet we feel small and we feel insignificant. And yet if every person within the faith community looked at what God has already given them and just thought to themselves, how can I use this for God's glory and bringing awareness in this particular issue, we would wake up that sleeping giant. And part of it is that people just don't know what trafficking really looks like.
Yeah,
and
so true.
I was reading too, people think it's a myth that it only happens overseas.
Yeah.
And that's far from truth.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's between 300 to 600,000 kids at risk.
Yeah, there's 300 to 600,000 kids at risk within the United States, and 100,000 are already trafficked, according to the Center of Missing and Exploited Children. And just to put that into perspective, because you can hear these large numbers and you can be overwhelmed and you can be impacted, but there might be some sports fans listening right now. So imagine 5 Staples Centers. Okay. 5 Staples Centers is the equivalent of 100,000. So 5 Staples Centers full of American children. 70% of those children are Americans, which is another myth. You think, oh, they're being trafficked into the United States. They don't realize that it's happening to U.S. children as well. And I mean, whether they're U.S. children or they're coming from a different place, in my opinion, doesn't super matter.
Yes.
But the reality of it is people don't recognize that it's happening right under our noses. And that's like 2 Dodger stadiums, too.
That's
Just
huge.
a huge amount of children being affected.
Sad.
Here within the United States and abroad. I mean, if you look at just trafficking, modern day slavery, a lot of people think, oh, Abraham Lincoln, there's no slavery anymore. But the reality of it is not to mock them, but that was my attempt to make another person's voice, and it didn't come out very well. There's 27 million people worldwide who's entrapped in modern day slavery, and that can be sex slavery or labor.
Wow. And so you're saying the different areas of church, or you remember you was explaining to me about the what you call foster care and the different ones that can handle it in the faith base? What do you mean, the 5 faith base?
So like imagine that you have 5 churches.
Okay.
So of those 5 churches, you assign just one child. Like, okay, one of you 5 churches have to take this one child, and if one came forward, that's kind of the statistic or ratio.
Oh, I get it now.
Of just saying we could wipe out
big time
the demand, so to speak.
So even if you're a small church, you could still make a difference.
Huge.
Yeah.
I get it. I get what you're saying now. I didn't quite catch it at first, but wow, yeah. Oh, okay, yeah, because some people their church they only have 10 because they're a storefront church. So they may feel, oh, we can't make a difference, but yeah, you can.
The reality of it is one person can make a difference. And then you bring 10 people in, that just gets me excited because then that's 10 people with a unified vision.
Right.
I mean, the reality of it is even people who are listening right now and they might just be in their living room or watching it in the den of their house, that one person who looks at what God's already equipped them with, whether it's maybe you're a hair cutter, you do half the proceeds go to an organization, or maybe you're a women's group leader and you decide to bring awareness to this, to have mothers and wives know how to address this in their home.
Right.
I mean, the reality of it is every single person has stewardship of some space, and it's just, can you enter this topic into that space? For me, that's how it happened. I've been involved in girls ministries at my church for over 12 years in leadership. And when I found out that the average age that girls get involved in trafficking is between 12 and 14.
I know, that blew my mind.
I teach the middle school girls. And so it just hit me because here I get texts from these girls. Oh, this guy in science class, he winked at me. What should I do, Miss Caitlin? What should I do? What should I do? Like, should I say? And I'm thinking these are the girls that are then expected to make over $1,000 a night. That's at least 20 clients that are raping these girls at 12 or 14. Sad. And to me, that's when I couldn't ignore it, because God gave me the ability to speak into those girls' life, and those girls out there walking the streets, like those are my it's called missionettes. Those are my missionette girls. Yes. Those are my girls ministry girls. And so to me as a leader, I couldn't stay out of this conversation anymore. I felt like there was more than just an obligation. There was just a compulsion by the Holy Spirit to do something.
Yeah. So what's the a gorilla pimp?
Oh yeah. So you were talking about the different ways people get involved, and this was one of the most shocking ways. Is there's it's now coming out with more and more variations, but there's 3 essential types of pimps out there, and the first one is deemed a gorilla pimp, and he's kind of what you would expect. He's kind of the stereotype you would expect associated. He uses force, he uses violence, he threatens. Okay. He's a gorilla. You think strong and powerful. That's the gorilla pimp. He's strong arming. Because at the core of trafficking, trafficking is using force, fraud, or coercion. Those are the 3 ways. So, and pimps can use either of those 3 ways. So a gorilla pimp might come up and he'll literally kidnap or force or threaten to hurt somebody else if people don't get involved. That's the guerrilla pimp's tactic or force. He might, I'm just getting my notes to make sure I'm not missing anything, but he's usually at parties or malls or, places where there's a lot of lacking adult supervision rather.
Oh.
But what really gets me more than the guerrilla pimp is the other two types of pimps, because they don't send up red flags.
The CEO pimp?
The CEO pimp. So CEO pimp might come, and I know you guys have roots in the entertainment industry, and that's kind of your background. So you guys might even be able to recognize. But imagine this. Imagine you have a runaway.
Right.
Or a foster care. So their whole life has been rejection. Their whole life has been wanting to make it big, to get out of the place that they're in. And then someone comes up to them and says, you know what? You're beautiful. Like, you have a face for modeling. Has anybody ever told you that? I can make you so big. Just come with me. And it's not just a guy scruffy. He's in a suit. He has a car. He's flashing money. He has legit business cards.
Wow.
He's surrounded by girls who are gorgeous, and they're saying, I was just like you. I was a little hesitant.
Oh, he has help like that.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
That's the biggest thing is pimps.
So he gets into their head, make them believe that,
Absolutely. He'll anticipate what will be red flags for you and then preempt them. Oftentimes, pimps, you're not going to have a pimp always be the person coming up and recruiting them. Sometimes they'll have young girls or boys be actual recruiters. They'll send them into group foster homes and try to convince them to run away. And the kids are thinking, well, this is another kid. They're safe, but I can trust them. But the reality of it is pimps use younger people because they're
and they're naive.
And they're naive.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
They need attention. They need love.
Right.
So if you've been told you're the worst piece of thing on the earth and somebody's telling you you're amazing,
Right.
who are you going to go to?
And I can make you money. And are you tired of being hungry? Are you tired of being maybe even abused within the foster care? Are you tired of the way your life is? And then they paint this dream. I mean, the reality of it is we're all set up to fall for this. Like, it's not just these types of kids. The reality of it is we all have an innate desire for love, security, significance, acceptance.
Yes,
and the pimps prey on that.
Yeah.
And
some people just have a desire to want fame.
Right.
So they're going to go after things like that. Who doesn't want to live a life of money?
Right.
So you're working at the mall and you're making minimum wage, and here he's telling you, you're beautiful, I can take you here, and they look the part. That is so wrong.
And they'll actually have you fill out maybe a job application, or even give you a gig one time and have you fill out the W-2. Now they have all your personal information. So I actually heard a story of someone who that's how she ended up getting trapped, is so she filled out all the information, because they'll go to malls where kids dwell and they're recruiters. And the tough part is not every person who comes up to a child in a mall telling them, hey, you can become a part of this modeling agency is a pimp. But the reality of it is they can be recruiters. And so kids fill out all their information, and it's just easy for them to get trapped. Oftentimes at that point, now that they have their personal information, they can say, they can draw them in with, we'll retaliate against your parents, or we'll retaliate against your sisters. And so they'll actually threaten those around them as another way of luring them in and getting them stuck there in the game.
What about social media? Are they using that as well, to lure the kids in?
Oh, absolutely.
Through social media.
Yeah, absolutely. Before we go to social media, though, I'll mention the last pimp is the Romeo pimp, and I didn't want to miss this, because I think this pimp is the one that got to me the most. I don't know if it's just because I'm a girl, because I like Disney. I'm not quite sure. But what the Romeo pimp will literally come and he'll date, or he'll woo this girl. So he'll all of a sudden get her nails done, give her presents, just spoil her.
Like he's a boyfriend.
Boyfriend. They'll actually believe that they're dating. Some will actually date them, not instantly traffic them, not instantly bring them in, paint this picture. They believe they're in a legitimate relationship with them. And they'll paint this picture sometimes of, honey, money is tight. we have this dream. Let us dream together. You know, we want to build this life together. If I was you, I would do this. But all of a sudden there's a switch, and then he'll convince them to go and prostitute themselves. And next thing you know, that's how they're brought in.
So once they're lured in, then that's when he turns the table, turns it around. Wow.
That's really sad. And if you have nobody, you're in foster care, and you have really nothing or advice to tell you, hey, this is, and then sometimes at that point you don't even want to listen because this person's telling you they love you.
Right.
That's
yeah,
true.
I think about young
That's
love.
true.
You're gonna fight for that. The reality of it is I think anybody. I think that's what struck me.
Right.
Yeah.
Is you think, oh, I would never fall for that. I would. Oh, they're only falling for that because they're in this industry or they're foster care or whatnot. But the reality of it is people from all walks of life, even affluent, even people who've had the Leave It to Beaver can become victims of it because all of us have that innate desire, and they just prey on that. And so I think that's the mindset that people need to have when dealing with this is how easy it could be for anybody. And
It's
then,
so true.
And then I think of the kids within my care, or if you're a mom or a dad, the kids under you or neighbors, and the reality of it is every single person has an influence or sphere that they can let people know, because then they're more aware of it. I mean, my sister's going to kill me, but just today someone messaged my sister. It's not trafficking, but they were saying, oh, you've won the lottery, but it was coming from as if one of her Facebook friends messaged her. And at first it didn't draw or red alert or have the red flags go up because it was coming from somebody she trusts.
Right.
But it wasn't actually that person because it got hacked.
Yeah.
And I started thinking about that because here, I mean, my sister, she's smart cookie, and yet our when our defenses are down, it's easy for us not to have those red flags. And so PIMS will do everything to get those defenses down, whether it's using another kid to be that recruiter, whether it's using your desires, whether it's painting the dream, whether it's saying everything as a girl you've been designed to want to hear.
Yeah. What about?
Before you get onto that,
she already knows where you're going.
No, because I want him to tell the story. Before we go on, I want you guys to know you can join this conversation if you have any questions. The phone number here is 818-570-5085.
Please
call in.
Call.
She's here. You can ask the questions if you want to make a difference. Now, Chuck, can you please tell them about that video you saw with the guy doing that test on kids?
Yes.
I mean, I thought this was brilliant of a test for parents. So tell her about this.
Just recently I saw this video. This guy does pranks. And so he went to the parents to find out if to get permission, first of all, to do a test to see if their kids would respond to him and do the right thing by telling him no. And so he spoke with the parents and said, yeah, well, it's a test. I give you the approval. Go for it. So he got online, or Facebook. And, said, pretended to be their friend and said, I'd like to meet you. I'd like to, when do you know when your parents going to be asleep?
And what was the ages?
The ages were between 8 to 12 or so.
Yeah.
And let me know when your parents are asleep. And
he put a picture of the age group.
Yeah, the age group. And
so unless it's a 10-year-old.
Yeah.
He had a 10-year-old boy.
Yes. And so the girl's texting him, and the parents are asleep, supposedly. And they're going back and forth on the text, and then she ends up sneaking out to meet him out front, and she jumps in his car, not knowing that the parents were in the back seat of the van. Right. And they just couldn't believe that their kid snuck out the house, and they were just yelling at their kid, "What are you doing?"
And mind you, before that, they were bragging,
this,
my child would never do that.
Yeah,
my child would never do that.
My kid would never do it. And they were shocked, and the kid was crying, and so many kids will just do it.
And they did it with several kids.
They're good kids. They don't know better. The reality of it is one of the ways to get tactics that they're using, which just kind of blew my mind, is gaming sites. So that's huge. Kids will actually be talking with one another, but they have literally a way of changing their voices. So it sounds like you're talking to a 12-year-old boy, but it's not a 12-year-old boy.
Are you serious? Oh, wow.
And so gaming sites is one way that they're luring them in. You mentioned social media. I mean, social media. Yeah.
Animals. You know, they use animals, you know.
Yeah,
and,
I mean, that's
park.
for younger kids and kidnapping. And I think one thing that resonated with me is how kidnapping isn't necessarily the major source. It's much more coercion and manipulation. You mentioned how do they use social media. It could be as simple as, let's say it's a CEO pimp sees a young girl, maybe preteen, tells her, hey, I think you're beautiful. I see your pictures on here. I think you can make it big. They'll actually buy and send them a plane ticket to have them come over. And don't tell your parents, right?
Yeah.
They won't understand. They won't think you're ready. This is your big shot. You know, that was actually a true story. And thank the Lord, the flight attendant, you know, just ended up having a conversation with the child. Something rang a bell, and then she alerted someone. And that's why I said an informed community is the best defense, because when you can see something fishy, whether it's a child, you know, believing something like that, or one of the also signs of trafficking that the community can be aware of is you think trafficking, you think it's going to be in this kind of dirty, rundown bar, strip club, you know, sticky when you walk all over it, like just, you know, kind of gross area. But the reality of it is they've become so sophisticated that sometimes they'll actually have it running out of affluent neighborhoods and luxury condos.
Wow.
And so because online, you know, how it works, just to paint a picture, let's say a guy goes on to a porn site. So we're talking about the demand side now. Goes on to a porn site, a pop-up comes up. He follows the pop-up. One pop-up leads to a little bit more aggressive, a little bit more obscene, a little bit showing different types of acts that no regular woman would want. Maybe it's violent. And all of a sudden he ends up on an escort service where he can literally pinpoint his preferences. I want this size bust. I want a brunette. I want 5'8". I want them to do this and that. And it's almost like he's placing an order. And within 1 hour, there can be a time and a place where he can meet that person. Well, if it's not necessarily the type of guys that you think, it could be a lawyer, it can be a doctor, it can be people from affluent areas. So they don't want to go into the seedy. So they're allowing them to all of a sudden hook up in these luxury apartments. And so neighbors sometimes, some of the stings or some of the things that have been able to occur is because they alert authorities of, hey, you know, we see men coming in and out of this apartment around lunchtime, and then there's high traffic or after work, or, you know, it's kind of strange. We see people going to this accounting business, but it's 11 o'clock at night. Like, what are they doing going into the accounting business? Something's a little strange going on. And so I will take time. Don't be the hero that tries to go and, you know, Rambo the sting themselves. And because oftentimes, I mean, working with LAPD or FBI agents and talking about wanting to wake up the sleeping giant, they're all for it, but they also have the concern of they've had it where they've been involved in investigations, because the police are doing an amazing job. Yeah, I just want to, pray for our law enforcement. They really are. It's not like they're dropping the ball. And oftentimes they're setting up a sting operation, and they've legitimately have church groups who have come in and actually ruined the entire operation and compromised it and put them in danger. And so there are ways that churches and individuals can get involved, but we're on the supply and demand. How can we prevent it? How can we advocate against it at a legal? How can we provide recovery services? There's a place that we have, but leave the busting and the busting the bad guy to the law enforcement. And
please
just
keep it safe.
Just in case some of my FBI friends are watching, they would probably kill me if I didn't mention that. So
that's good.
Please.
Figure of speech. Maybe I shouldn't say that.
We understand.
Okay. And how are they trafficking the young women through parties? What do they do? I mean, they're using other kids at parties, you know, to
absolutely.
lure them
What
in.
kind of parties? You talking about kid parties or How? What kind of parties?
Oh no, like preteen parties.
Oh, okay,
you know,
gotcha.
that kind of.
I'm about to say, where the parents?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just like having a problem. But you know what? To interject in this whole situation, there's something since I've spoken with you. Something has really bugged me. I remember we were in a minority neighborhood, and this guy would take pictures every time the person come out. It was a Norm's restaurant, but anyway, he was standing out there. And he would snap pictures, tell them, "Oh, she's so pretty. Let me take them pictures. And here's my card." And it was with the parent. And now I'm sitting up here thinking, it just turned in my stomach like something's wrong. Why are you standing outside of a Norm's taking pictures of random little kids around 8, 9, 10 years old? This is what went through my mind, was porn sites, or you're trying to get them involved in something. It just didn't seem right, you know. But the parents were there, taking the card, giving him information.
Yeah, I mean, I can't say.
We have to, no, but I'm just saying, we have to be careful as parents because we become gullible too.
Yeah. I mean, you know, parents, you guys are juggling so much, so this isn't this is on you type thing, but there are ways that parents can get involved in educating their kids, but small things. One thing that kind of struck me in terms of what we can do in going back to social media is this phenomenon of geotagging. And basically, when you take, let's say, I don't have my phone. So, you know, you have a child, you're taking a picture of it, you still have that location. You know, we all use it when we want to go MapQuest something. Your location's on. So, but when it's actually happening, if you have that setting on your phone when you take a picture, encrypted in that photograph is actually a geotag of where that was taken. So you upload that picture onto social media. Yes. And what you're actually doing is letting them know exactly where your child was, exactly where they are. And so, I mean, once a child, let's say, interacts with someone on their own via social media, which happens a lot. I went to talk to a group of girls right when I started getting involved in this, and I was thinking, well, how often, you know, does this happen? And the girls were telling me all the time, like, hey, see, I knew that guy that you were talking to, and I'm sitting there going, oh, my word, what's going on, you know? Yes. And I guess it happens a lot more than we realize. And, I mean, I've even had people you know, message me, and it's always someone good looking, or it's always someone who doesn't look like a pimp. And so it's just really to be savvy about not talking to people you just don't know, even if they look innocent. And I mean, once you add them as a friend, you're thinking, well, I'm not meeting up with them. Like I'm not swapping where I am, but you add them as a friend, and think about it. You have check-ins where you are. You check in at your school. You check in at the movies. You do check-ins at your church. You take pictures with geotags because you still have that setting on your phone, and they don't need to ask you because it's there.
I didn't even know what a geotag was. Wow. I'm like so educated.
I'll show you.
Wow. Yeah.
Under your settings, you can turn it off.
Didn't even know it.
Yeah. I will be turning it off. Thank you. Because I'm sure a lot of parents don't know geotag, unless maybe it's just me. I don't know. But I'm
didn't
glad
know.
You didn't know? No. Okay. Thank you. Because sometimes my age precedes me. But no, I love that you're giving that information, because I don't know. To me, it's just so hurtful, and I want to get educated. I want everybody out there to be educated. And what's the best? So from there, now we know we have recognized who they are, the pimps, the different type of pimps, and where the kids are. So tell me some of the little things that these kids may go through if they are in that and like, you know, just a slight example.
Yeah, I think it really depends on the type of pimp that is over them. Some legitimately will be involved in trafficking for a very long time, still believing the lie that they're dating them. And oftentimes they're getting rescued, and the people who are trying to rescue them they're fighting that idea of like, no, he loves me. And they're trying to let them recognize that he's actually pimping these other girls, or, you know, trying to have them recognize that they're victims of trafficking. So sometimes they're that entrenched in the lie. Other times, you know, they're the average. Well, let's just put it this way: once a a child or a teen gets involved, the average lifespan from that point on is 7 years.
7 years?
That they'll end up dying from AIDS, suicide, some violent act, 7 years from that point on. So if you think about it, average age, entry age between 12 and 14, you're recognizing the brutality of it, and the strain of it. And it's not just physical, it's emotional, and it's just hits on every level like that. If they're forced to make, I mean, it depends on the pimp, but up to $1,000 a night. If they don't make that quota, they're beat, they're burned, they're humiliated. I've read, like, you know, just what you can imagine in terms of what they can do. Just verbally abusive. They might hurt other girls to try to motivate them. I mean, just violent acts if they don't meet that quota. And I mentioned to you that I had a kind of a strange occurrence for me where I was getting my car fixed yesterday.
Yes, please.
Yeah.
And, you know, just go to get the regular maintenance, and told them that I was doing the show. Actually, I was brushing up on some of the statistics and things like that. And her face changed, and she came up to me afterwards once she realized I was talking on trafficking, and she told me her story. And her story was that she was actually involved in that the game is what they call it.
The game?
The game or the lifestyle for several years. And she didn't use the terminology of like, oh, and he was a Romeo pimp, but as she was telling her story of, you know, it started off where we were dating, and there was other girls on the side that he was, she didn't say trafficking, but like pimping out or using, but he would always look to me and say like, oh, you're too good for that, you know, and then spoil her because they're having that emotional attachment. And then suddenly, but was showing her how much money she could make, and she just got manipulated in. And then once she was in, it changed, and she said, I've been burned down there. I've been still have wounds. I have all these different things that she was sharing with me. And so it just really, to me, it's easy to sit here and characterize what a person would look like. But the reality of it is, and as she even pointed out, it's on Figueroa Street. It's down the street.
Yeah, it's everywhere.
It's everywhere.
Yeah.
And
it could be a next door neighbor. It could be some kid in the church. You really don't know, because anybody could be manipulated.
Right. And so, just kind of hearing from her, and she said, you know, a lot of people think that people stay in it because of just the emotional attachment to the pimp, but she was saying how even within the girls there creates a community where they try to support each other, and that's a form of love that ends up getting people sucked in. So I think every person's story is different, but I think that there's
them up psychologically. You know,
absolutely.
Yeah.
But
after a while, you know,
and the reality of it is the statistics show that only 1% actually are recovered, and so where
1%?
that's
a low percent. Wow.
And what we can do as a church is on the recovery side. Dream Center's doing amazing things, saving innocence, doing amazing things in terms of that recovery process.
So what's Dream Center? What's the names you're calling out?
Organizations that people could write down and go Google.
Yeah. Because what they actually, are they the people that go get the kids, or are they the one counseling? That's what I'm trying to
counseling. That's why I said in terms of the recovery process. But where we as a church can really come in is supporting that process, but on the prevention side. So, you know, so we don't have to have those kids go to that point. What does it look like when a church becomes an advocate for a foster care? Maybe you say, you know what, our family can't bring in and house, or we can't adopt them, but you can be an advocate for that foster care. You can be that person so they don't fall in between the cracks. Like, that's one way to get involved. There's so many different ways to be involved in this.
So as an advocate, do you know the foster mother, or what does an advocate actually do? Like, I know you're there to look, but would social service allow that? How does that work?
Yeah, I mean, that you go with certain organizations like CASA, I believe, is one of them. Kid Bridge is another organization that you can bring into your church that has different ministries you can run out of your church. So I think each foster care ministry will have a different focus, but one, actually, you will be a court appointed. I mean, that one's kind of an intense commitment but amazing rewards that you can reap. But you're a court appointed foster care advocate, so you actually are the person that will go to the different court cases. You can sign off on different school things.
Wow.
Look at that.
So actually being a part of that process.
Okay.
But I mean, and these are, I mean, it's overwhelming to there's so many organizations out there doing amazing things. As long as I've been involved, I feel like I'm learning about even more people. And the reality of it is we need that. And that's what I love about FIAT is FIAT, to me, puts it all together. So you don't have to run around and do all the legwork of trying to figure out where to go. What we do is we facilitate that. So you can actually go and meet someone who's doing it and have that conversation with someone who's involved. And you can get educated, but also automatically know and interact with people who are involved in the fight. And so I just want to mention that our next FIAT meeting, it's absolutely free. It's October 24th. Okay. And it's Rolling Hills Covenant, and it's just a Saturday. If you come at 9, we have basic 101 training on human trafficking, and then the rest of the event will have different workshops, from putting up posters. There, by law, certain industries, certain like whether it's motels and massage parlors, there's certain businesses that are required by law to have a specific type of poster posted that will provide the hotline and signs and ways to get out. So there's different organizations that can train your youth group on the best way to do that safely and how to do a poster campaign. So the reality of it is there's ongoing commitments that you can do. There's things that your group can do of inviting speakers in, and maybe it's a one-time thing. So there's different levels of investment. So I always like to let people know that, because I think there's a lot of great causes out there, and sometimes you can feel overwhelmed, but there's always something you can do, and FIAT will link you with that. And we can probably post the flyer on your Facebook. And
I was about to say the flyer is on my Facebook, on the Recovery Switch Facebook site, and mine, Nicole Squires Facebook. It shows the actual flyer when you can come to this meeting. It's there, so it's a really good way to get organized and know a direction in which to move, because we all want to help, but sometimes it's about conversation, and it's about commitment, and it's about getting to the meeting, and it's about learning. Saying that we want to and not walking into it is it's not acceptable. Let's walk into it, go to the meeting, let's learn what we have to learn so that we can become better. Let's not be the sleeping giant anymore. That's what I'm trying not to that's what I'm trying to stop at this point, because this has to stop. I mean, like she said, one person can make a difference. And they're just trying to get 5 churches to try and help one. Now, come on, we can do better than this. So
it's funny that you mentioned that too. I was just talking to someone with FIAT, and she was mentioning like the pimps are collaborating. Like they get together and they swap business strategies, because to them, I mean, we didn't really mention this, but the girls are just objects. They're products to be sold. They'll actually brand girls, tattoo them. With barcodes, or with their a name or different tattoos. They're branding them. They're a piece of property. I mentioned somewhere that trafficking is the fastest growing illegal enterprise, fastest growing. It's number 2 just behind drugs. It's now surpassed arms dealing. And
I hear the entrance points is in California.
California has a major entry point for trafficking. And one of the things that they say or can say is, you can sell drugs once, you can sell girls several times.
Wow.
A pimp can make up to $500,000 a year.
Oh, wow.
It's lucrative because
on one girl?
That's a good question. You know what? I don't want to I don't want to misspeak to that.
Yes.
I'm not quite sure, but the industry itself is up till I want to make sure I quote this correctly, because people throw out numbers all the time. But $150 billion industry in and of itself. It's rapidly growing, and they view themselves as businessmen. And they swap recruiting. They swap tactics. They come together. And my question is. And gangs are involved, and yet gangs will still, come together. And if pimps can collaborate, why can't we?
Hey, man,
and
I love it. Seriously.
What FIAT is about is collaboration. And FIAT, actually, the root of FIAT comes from an organization called Care 18, and I just want to throw it out there because if you register, I don't want you to be jarred because all of a sudden you'll be on a Care 18 site. And Care 18 is kind of the mothership behind FIAT. So FIAT is faith-based. Okay. Care 18 is a collaborative of 18 NGOs, law enforcement, just various people involved in the fight, and that's their heart. They're as bringing everybody who's involved at the table and then empowering people to move forward. And the good news is we are. I think a lot of times people leave these things and they feel like, oh man, look how we're dropping the ball. I want to say, no, the ball is moving, and join us. Let's make an accelerated impact.
Yes,
because we can keep this going. And so care18.org, if you can't find her Facebook, if you go to care18.org, go to the events. FIAT will be another way you can get plugged in that way. But
yeah, and then you have the FIAT organization. What is their website directly?
that we're actually just a sub page on Care 18 right now.
Good.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's fine. And then you have a hotline you wanted to tell them about, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
If
please
everybody
mention it.
right now, I'm going to give you a couple seconds to go find your
Yes.
phone and dig in that
Please.
purse, right? Pull out the hotline. I'll
Right.
give you a moment and explain what this is. Basically, if you suspect something, if you don't know, sometimes that's the thing is, oh, you have that weird feeling something's going on, but
Yeah,
you're not
like I
quite
did.
sure enough to,
Right.
to call like LAPD, or that sounds really intense.
Right.
Or maybe you have a young girl. This just happened to me, actually. I'm still buying you time to go get your phone, so there's still time. Is a girl just texted me the other day and said, hey, my sister's friend was talking to somebody online, and he ends up having nude pictures of her, and he's posting it all over the internet, and she doesn't really know what to do, but she doesn't feel comfortable
Wow,
going to the
really?
police because she doesn't want her mom to find out, but she knows something's up. What should I do? She wants help, but she doesn't want to make a fuss, or she doesn't want, and this is an anonymous hotline, so it really brings
How
down
old
that.
is she? Would you
That's a
say?
great question. She
Okay.
is probably, I would say, upper middle school.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah.
Felony.
Yeah.
Get caught.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. The reality of it is there is no such thing as a child prostitute. None. Because prostitution, anything, if they're involved under 18, it's trafficking. Instantly
Yeah.
a victim of trafficking. So now that you guys have your phone, this is the hotline that you guys can use, whether someone comes forward or you just want to report something anonymously and get information on what the next step. It's 1-888-373-7888. I'll say it one more time. It's 1-888-373-7888. And also, girls can directly text help. Like, let's say someone's listening to this for whatever reason and they end up getting involved in that. They can text help because sometimes they can't call.
Right.
And they've gotten thousands, and we're able to rescue thousands via this hotline. It's been an amazing
Yeah,
resource.
just text
Great.
the word help.
Just
You
help.
can just text
Help.
help. Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow.
And take them right there.
Yeah. And so
Terrific.
that's just a great thing to have, because you never know when you're going to need it. And
It's a good idea.
a lot of the girls, one of the questions that people have is, why don't they run away? Like, why don't they run away? And a lot of the girls who end up being rescued says, we don't know how to even ask for help. A lot of them are conditioned to not trust police officers. Sometimes police officers are the buyers.
Right.
Sometimes I am all for law enforcement. Pray for our cops.
Yes.
But sometimes they just don't have a trust there. And cops will be the first to say that's why the church needs to get involved, because there is a trust. And
Right.
that's where the poster campaigns come in, because if we post at bus stops or where runaways are going to be, one thing that we didn't talk about is we talked about foster care, but runaways is a huge
Big
component of
Yeah.
it, whether it's foster care or
There's
not.
so many in Hollywood. So
Yeah.
many.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's approximately 1.6 million kids
On the streets.
on the streets, according to the Center of Missing and Exploited Children. And within 48 hours, 1/3 of them will be trafficked. So
Within 48 hours.
48 hours, 1/3. And so one of the ways that, we can get involved, and some of the tools that FIAT will even be discussing at the next event, is how do you run a poster campaign so you can get posters in the areas that they might frequent, So they have that place to help
good idea.
and get there. And it's going to be in different languages and all
Great
that's
idea.
involved. So, and let's say someone's listening and they're like, hey, you know what? I'm not going to lie. I'm not a part of a church. I don't go to church, but I want to be involved. You can go to SoCalHumanTraffickingEvents.com. That literally will have all the recent events in the areas from CSEC training, or let's say you can't make the FIAT meeting, or that's not in your area. That's another resource you guys can check out to stay involved and get involved. And
Say it again.
it's SoCalHumanTraffickingEvents.com.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'll say this. I'm going to make sure I have all this on my Facebook. So there will be no
Yes.
excuse. You're going to be able to get everything that you need to be able to be involved. We have to make a difference. And that's what this show is about. She came on here to let you know, to bring you in. Because this was requested by one of the Facebook friends that I have. We are in a crisis situation. And we have to change this. It hurts my heart, and I'm sure it hurts yours. Yeah. We have to do something. And here is a resource that teaches us the correct way in which we can make a difference and do something. So please, I will put it on my Facebook. There is a hotline. There is information in SoCal Human Trafficking Events telling you more stuff. Come to her event. She's extremely good. She will tell you all, and the people there will tell you exactly what needs to happen. But here at the Recovery Switch, we're about making a difference. You as the viewer who tunes in every week, and we have some great followers. You guys let us know. Thank you.
Thank you.
And please share the information. I will have it up on my YouTube channel. You could always come and download it from LA Talk Radio. Whatever it takes, get this information and let's do something. I thank you again for tuning in. Thank you, Caitlin.
Thank you,
For
Caitlin.
having
With
me.
the FIAT
Thank you so much.
Foundation. Thank you so much.
Really.
You really educated us. You gave us opportunity to make a difference. Thank you for that.
Absolutely.
And again, Chuck, we had a great night.
Yeah, it was awesome.
And the viewers, thank you for tuning in every week. Thank you for being that type of individual that will want to make the difference, who is about change. Share it with your family. Share it with anybody. But please tune in next week, and we'll be here to make a difference with you. You guys have a great night, and God bless.
God bless you.
God bless. Take care.
You're listening to The Recovery Switch, where victory lives, with Nicole Elizabeth Squires, only on LA Talk Radio.